Hi, I am Jenny here at Designs with Paper. Today I'm going to use the Simon Says Stamps Spring Gnomies stamp set and some watercolor pencils to do a little bit of no-line coloring with a little bit more control than regular watercolors. Thanks for watching. So today I'm going to be using this watercolor paper that I picked up at Michael's. It's their Artist Loft brand. It's 140 pound. They were having a sale on it, so I thought I would try it out. Here I have two of those gnomes in my Misty Stamp Positioner, and I'm going to stamp them with Stampin' Up's Sahara Sand ink. It's a really light tan color, and the Stampin' Up inks are not permanent, so as I add the pigment from the pencils and the water with my water brush, that line will kind of fade and disappear with the blending of the color. I like to use a towel on the door of my Misty or my sleeve if I'm wearing long sleeves, because then I can get a nice, smooth, even impression as I'm stamping the images with my Misty. My fingers kind of slide and skid across the lid otherwise. So I'm coloring these super adorable gnomes. I love the stamp set. It is so dang cute. I'm going to color these gnomes with watercolor pencils. I have a whole bunch of different brands of watercolor pencils, and they look and feel like a traditional colored pencil. But when you add water to it, the pigment blends out. So I'm adding the color into, or the pigment from the pencil, into where the shadows are. And then I take that water brush and I pull the pigment out away from the shadow. And I have that towel off to the side, and as my pencil gets too wet, I just dab it onto that towel. I wanted the ears and the mustache and beard to look like white. So I used a really light gray, and I just added layers and layers. And once the color gets to the rest of the image and the hat and in the clothes, that gray looks more like a white beard with shadows. So the thing with watercolor pencils is that if you add the pigment onto really wet paper, you get kind of a blob that doesn't fade out, kind of like that little gray splotch right there by his nose. Eventually, I get that all blended in and faded out, and it's not too noticeable. So I kept adding the pigment and dragging it out with that water brush. I added just layers and layers, a little bit at a time. I would move from place to place on the image and let the paper dry a little bit in between. And I even went between each gnome and went back and forth between the gnomes. And I just added a little bit of pigment and a little bit of water and a little bit of pigment and a little bit of water until I had the look I was looking for. I did not start this project with specific cards or pattern paper or even people in mind. Sometimes I will grab a stamp set and just stamp the images out and color them with whatever coloring medium I am feeling at the moment, and then figure out how to make them all cards later. Sometimes I put colors on them that I can't really match to pattern paper, or that I can't figure, why did I color that man gnome pink? I don't know. Anyway, this gnome has blue clothes and a purple hat because it was springtime and I was feeling springy, I guess. The cool thing about colored pencils that I really like is that you have this really controlled pigment that you put down, and as you add the water to it, it just floods out like a regular watercolor. It does give me a little bit more control, which I appreciate. I kind of have control issues, I guess. But I like that I can decide where it's going to be darker and where it's going to be lighter with just a little bit of water. So here's that second gnome, and unfortunately, the footage for the second and third gnome is very limited. I was watching a movie on Netflix while I was coloring, and the movie drowned out the sound of my camera beeping at me that my SD card was full. So yeah, there's that. I guess I need to pay a little more attention to that and a little less attention to Netflix. Who knows? But I colored the gnomes the same. I used the same skin tone for their noses, and the two men gnomes have kind of that grayish white beard and mustache, and this cute little girl gnome ended up with some blondish brown braids. And you'll be able to see them at the end. I've added some photos at the end of the video. But I did the same thing. I just added the pigment and then dragged it out with the water brush. So here I've grabbed 3 colors of cardstock. They're Stampin' Up. I don't know the color names. And they are 8.5 by 11 inches. And I'm cutting them with my Fiskars trimmer, long style. My kids call it hot dog style. So they are 4 1/4 by 11. And I'm scoring them at the 5.5 inch line with my scoreboard. And it's really important to use a scoreboard or a bone folder when you're folding them, top folding cards like this, because you're folding against the paper grain. And it gives a much smoother crease at the top of your card if you've scored it and used a bone folder. So I cut these gnome panels down with the Lawn Fawn small stitch rectangle die set. I used the largest in that set, and it makes it about 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And I've added each of these gnomes to the card base with my ATG gun. I prefer tape adhesive because it's less of a mess for me than liquid glue. I'm a hot mess with liquid glue. And I just grabbed colored paper that matched the colors that I had colored each one of these gnomes and put the panels on top of the card bases, and there we go. So I hope you liked the video, and subscribe and like, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching.